Hermione Granger, Voluptuous Temptress, by the Pink Mistress. Chapter 1, Hermione and Flitwick's Secret. The Hogwarts grounds were becoming obscured beneath a gentle dusting of snow that made the castle glisten in the moonlight like a palace of ice. Most of the students lay asleep in their beds, safe from the cruel whip of the winter wind behind the thick paned windows. But the amber glow of a single oil lamp was still lit in one room, a tiny shard of light within a vast stone-walled library, making shadows dance against the endless rows of books. Professor Big Dick Flitwick had come in here to research, and one cramped desk stood littered with ancient rolls of parchment. But he was no longer interested in any of this. He was too busy showing Hermione Granger a restricted section of his own. He was giving her his Christmas present early this year, a single piece of tinsel adorning his chiseled body. Hermione Granger was tall, slim, and had the curves of a particularly sexy time-turner. Even though she was in Gryffindor, Flitwick liked to think of her as a Slytherin. As boy, did Professor Flitwick like to slither into that glorious chamber of secrets. Hours passed, and Professor Flitwick ploughed like a rampant hippogriff till his knees gave in. Crashing to the floor, they writhed on the floor, their naked bodies glowing in the lamplight. On the floor.
"If you're tired, I can bring in the Polyjuice potion clones to take over,"
whispered Hermione with a sultry smile. But suddenly, the gigantic doors swung open, and in burst Professor McGonagall in nothing but skimpy tartan lingerie that barely concealed her pumpkin pasties.
"Hermione Granger, you need to come with me." "Oh, goodness. I see you're doing some cunning of your own,"
cackled McGonagall, eyeing their naked bodies with a hungry smile.
"Professor, can't you see I'm busy? You'll have to wait until a different night,"
sighed Hermione.
"This is a matter of great urgency. Hogwarts is under attack and only you can save us."
"Me? But how?"
gasped Hermione, dropping Flitwick's enormous penis with a start.
"It's Snape! He's back! He has an army!"
Snape, Hermione's one true love. Many a moon ago, they had once been unrequited lovers. From the moment she arrived at Hogwarts, her eyes had only been for Snape. She would sit in potions classes, staring longingly across the classroom as he stirred a meaty vat of vert ass serum, and the stirring went on in his loins, aka trousers. She reminded him of Lily, but far sexier, and tits like a pair of World Cup winning quaffles, but they had never had their time together. The war against Voldemort had been an irritating distraction for their love. But for him to be alive? After all this time?
"Fuck yeah,"
Hermione muttered to herself, a flush of excitement colouring her cheeks. "What? You can't be considering seeing him, can you?" asked Professor Flitwick, totally losing his erection.
"My darling, I must. What you and I had was mainly physical. Snape and I. What we could have had. I must leave you."
With that, Hermione sprang up, threw on the robe she had so eagerly cast aside earlier, and raced out of the library. She needed to tell her friends what was happening. They would understand. They'd know what to do. Or would they? Professor Flitwick sat there aghast. The lady that made his heart set on fire, sexy fire, was gone forever, chasing after an old dream.
"Don't look so sad,"
purred a filthy Scottish whisper. McGonagall was stalking towards him, her hips swinging as hypnotically as the Imperious Curse, and a manic glint in her eyes that she normally saved for Quidditch matches. His wand stood to attention immediately.
My, Professor,"
she murmured, drawing closer, her eyes fixated on his throbbing phallus.
"I am one hungry pussy."
With that, she whipped out her wand and with a flick of her bony wrist, not unlike wanking, shot a huge sticky spell all over his face. Instantly, his body spasmed and he began to shrink. Yowling, Professor Flitwick ran to escape, but found himself unable to walk on 4 legs. He'd been transformed into a huge ginger tomcat.
"Petrificus totalis!"
She screamed! His eyes were struggling to adjust, but could just make out the shape of McGonagall shrinking into her tabby form. No, stop, please! He tried to scream, but only a feeble mew escaped his furry lips. But another figure appeared in the doorway. A pair of lamp-like eyes bulged through the gloom with a hungry grin. Mrs. Norris, slim and seductive as ever, strutted towards him. She winked at McGonagall and they turned towards Flitwick. Flitwick stopped trying to escape, transfixed by Mrs. Norris's sultry gaze. He began to purr hungrily. "You're not going to be Filch's dirty girl tonight," Flitwick muttered sexily in cat language. "Come here, my little sex kittens." Let the threesome begin.